If you're like me, you probably stayed up way too late to check out the NBA preseason and all of its weirdness. I've enjoyed seeing Tyrese Maxey get busy, Zion returning, not so much my Warriors and their drama, but other than that, a pretty good time. But crazily enough, the biggest storyline to come out of this preseason was the duel between the top two prospects of next year's incoming draft class, Scoot Henderson and Victor Wembanyama. Before we get into the question of who's better of the two, let's find out who these rising stars are for our viewers who don't know already. Starting with the frontrunner, Victor Wembanyama is a French basketball player at just 18 years old and has been widely hailed as one of the greatest prospects of this generation, which has a lot to do with the big man's 7'3" stature. There's not a lot of breadth of impressive statistics for Wembanyama at this point, although his showcases of 25 points on 13 of 19 shooting as a 17-year-old in the EuroLeague, as well as his 37-4-5 game against the other prospect we'll be talking about today, all but cemented his spot as next year's #1 pick, especially when considering his ceiling and physical tools. On to Scoot Henderson, a bright guard prospect hailing out of Marietta, Georgia. As I mentioned before, Scoot was not only Wembanyama's opponent in their October matchup, he would go on to win the game with a 28-9 stat line. This game was not only hugely entertaining, but started to get my wheels turning when placing myself in the shoes of whatever GM gets a #1 pick for next year's draft. Now, before you lose your mind, I do concede you would have to be Sonny Weaver Jr. from draft day level crazy to pick anyone but Wembanyama. But with that being said, injury concerns are a real thing, and if Scoot Henderson can contribute more to winning, how much does a player's potential truly matter? That's the specific question we seek to answer in today's video, and first, we'll be starting with the case of the NBA's next wonder child, Victor Wembanyama. When Victor was just a kid, he grew up in the outskirts city of Paris in a small town named Les Chesnay. I'm sorry if I butchered that. He started playing at 7, but admits it wasn't until he joined the JSF Natier youth system, sorry if I butchered that as well, that he would begin to start taking basketball seriously. At 13, Victor was already 6'6" and earned the opportunity to play for the French national team. His coaches marveled at his guard-like approach to the game with his lanky, although fluid cadence. Fast forward to 2021, and Wembanyama would get the opportunity of a lifetime, even if it doesn't appear so to the common eye. That opportunity was to train under Holger Geschwinder. Third time, yeah, sorry if I butchered it. Who you may ask? Oh, only the mentor for another great 7-foot pure shooter that broke a plethora of boundaries in his own right, Dirk Nowitzki. His trip would only last 10 days, but for Wembanyama, that time was spent priceless. He called what he learned from Geschwinder as body philosophy, which sparked a change in his mental approach to shooting. As Victor's stock continues to rise, doubt has grown parallel. I briefly touched on this earlier, but it essentially all boils down into the fear of his frame not being a hold up to the punishment the NBA dishes out on a nightly basis. We've seen cases like this time and time again, more recently with Chet Holmgren, going all the way back to Yao Ming's trials and tribulations with his foot, or Greg Oden if you want to talk about draft prospect concerns. But as you likely know already, I could go on and on. Unfortunately, this narrative grew so encompassing that Victor and his team decided to breach their current contract to join a team with less games on their schedule in order to free up time to work on his core strength. He also opted to visit Dallas, Texas to work with Melvin Sanders, a former NBA player who now specializes in athlete movement and biomechanics. Admittedly, Sanders had his concerns prior to their sessions too, although he left their meeting saying he's never seen an NBA body quite like Wembanyama's. Pause. In the sense of his ability to adapt and grow rapidly, whether it be in height or strength. The young prospect has adopted a moniker from another 7'3" guy with the ability to play from outside the arc with the unicorn. But let's just hope the two's career arcs are extremely different. No shade to Kristaps though. As the day of the game versus Scoot grew near, all eyes were on Wembanyama, especially considering his impressive outings of 34 points against the Turkish team Darüşşafaka. YouTube, please don't demonetize me. There's a lot of complicated words in this man's life story so far. And just 48 hours later, 34 points against the Israeli champ Hapoel Holon. Okay, we'll hope we got that. Following that, he posted 23 points, 10 boards, and 3 blocks in his first game of 2022-23. Onto the flashy 18-year-old guard for the G League Ignite, Scoot Henderson. Before he would become the first player to spend 2 years with the new Ignite team, a program specifically built to develop top prospects for their goal to become a top draft pick for the NBA, Scoot was getting buckets at Kell High School in Marietta, Georgia. You may think you get the picture, but try 2 Player of the Year honors, a career high 49 points against Miller Grove High School, and an average of 32, 7, and 6 throughout his high school playing career. On the heels of an outstanding junior season, Henderson would break barriers in his own regard as he would choose to leave school in favor of joining the first crop of prospects to go the G League path en route to a reported $1 million deal. At 6'2", Scoot measures out to be a full foot shorter than Wembanyama. While he doesn't quite bring the ceiling that the latter offers, he does bring an impressive handle combined with lethal playmaking and explosiveness. Henderson's been largely remarked as the top pick in any run-of-the-mill draft, and scouts project him to win multiple All-Star selections in his career while potentially becoming a top 10 player in the league. After just 1 season for the recently turned 18-year-old in the G League, he averaged 14, 5, and 4, highlighted by his 31, 6, and 5 game against the Santa Cruz Warriors in just his second outing. Admittedly, scouts hope to see Scoot's performance from behind the arc improve from its standing at 21.6% as his encore season ensues. My favorite thing about this comparison, which we'll dive into more detail with this next section, comes in the fact that little is known about these players' abilities in addition to absolutely no knowledge of how they'll translate to NBA's fast-paced and smarter environment. But we can still give it our best shot theorizing the potential impacts of these guys day one to whatever team is lucky enough to land them. Now that we're familiar with many of these 2 future stars games, let's talk about who will be the smarter pick for the winner of the 2023 draft lottery. To compare these players in the most efficient way possible, we'll be taking what we know so far and using that with their recent October matchup as a microcosm for each player's strengths and weaknesses as a potential draft choice. These 2 prospects are quite aware of their eventual comparison akin to Luka and Trae Young in their respective drafts. So much so, Wembanyama talked about their aligning prospect campaign saying, "He's a really great player. If I was never born, I think he would deserve the first spot." Not everyone is in the boat of Wembanyama being the runaway first choice though, which may surprise you. Sam Vecny of The Athletic was quoted as saying, "I'm not quite of the opinion that the race for the number 1 overall pick is a done deal, largely because Henderson exists and is terrific in his own right. He is remarkably explosive as an athlete and yet plays with tremendous pace and craft and with real creativity. I think he would have likely been the number 1 pick in the 2022 draft if he would have been eligible." But we can be real for a second. While it's fair to say Scoot may have a long shot chance of being a better player than Wembanyama in the league, I wouldn't want to be the team that picks him over Vic. Now that we are slightly in a less biased frame of mind, let's examine that matchup. The first thing that jumps off the screen, of course, is Wembanyama's threat to the defense anywhere past the half-court line. Whether he's bringing the ball up and spotting up for 3, standing in the dunker spot for a ridiculously easy oop opportunity, or dominating the elbow area. Wembanyama projects out to have a Steph Curry light gravity to him. The unicorn comparison is really derived from his 1 in a million shooting capability at his size, as he racked up 7 threes on 11 attempts that helped him cruise to a 37-point outing. That's not to minimize his defensive capabilities either. While he didn't flash for me during the game in the sense of his perimeter defense, his natural fluidness to his movement compared to his peers puts him at a level where he can likely hold his own given that he maintains consistent training. The main allure on the defensive part of his game is his rim protection capabilities. Wembanyama affected nearly all shots 5 feet and in from the basket, snagging 5 blocks total in the game. The 7'3" big man didn't just protect the shots on the inside, he was even able to block a couple shots taken as jumpers, even one from the hands of Scoot Henderson himself. Speaking of Scoot, remember he's 50% of this video too? Yeah, the speedy guard did everything in his power to make his case for number 1 as well. Some people may fear the Russell Westbrook player comp, but it's simply because this kid has so much natural explosion it can only remind you of the Westbrook, D Rose, Ja Morant archetypes. Another thing people may wince at is Scoot's 3-point concerns, as I mentioned before, but his shot motion is as pure as it gets from my estimation. He's also money from the mid-range, so I don't think it's a Michael Kidd, Gilchrist, Ben Simmons type situation. No offense to them. Where Scoot did have the edge over Vic was in his passing ability, finishing with 9 assists in the matchup. In my opinion, the most special thing about Scoot's game is his ability to get to the rim with the premonitions of a superstar level confidence, even at the young age of 18, which can be a lethal combo for his competitors. I mean, What else can you expect from someone who left high school early to make a 7-figure deal at the age of 17? This guy's been preparing for the moment longer than most, and it's close to as a done deal as it gets that Scoot will hit the ground running once he starts his eventual career. In the end, Scoot in the G League Ignite came out with the win, but the large consensus leaving the matchup was Wembanyama did anything but lose the exhibition. So, enough is enough. Who do you pick? Well, like I just said, just because these are real people with real jobs, I think you have to pick Wembanyama and flip the coin on the injury luck for 7-footers, just for having that potential of getting a franchise-defining player. But just as Scoot maybe had a slightly less hype leaving the October game, he did in fact come out with the win. And as easily as this game is used as a microcosm for their comparison, there is a possible future where Scoot ends up being the winning pick after looking at this decision with the power of hindsight. I just think Scoot has more of a traditional superstar level game. He plays, acts, and talks like a star. With his ability on the court to move at a different horsepower than his competitors and either rise above them for the easy finish or pull back for the turnaround J, he surprisingly hits with a nice consistency. Along with the top-notch IQ and passing ability, he has the tools of a player that can contribute to winning day one and projects out to be a franchise-altering player, while maybe not franchise-defining. It's easy to talk about the plethora of Wembanyama's strengths, which I'm actually more focused on pointing out his potential weaknesses. Emphasis on the potential. I can't even find a solid one to hold against him. I have to worry about his future health, or wonder about his IQ for the NBA, coming from France with a unique path to the draft which includes more training seemingly than games played. But I don't have anything solid, I'll admit. Truly, I think teams can be confident if they get the opportunity to secure either of these guys, they can rest assured that they have a certified star in their hands that's going to sell out arenas for years to come. I could go on and on about the possibilities of these players' potential impact on the NBA roster, but the truth is, we will not know for sure until we see these guys on the hardwood next October, and maybe not even a good while after that either. Although, until then, we can have our fun going back and forth on who you would rather pick if you were the GM equipped with the #1 pick in next year's draft. That being said, who do you favor? Let me know why you think Wembanyama will be the first of his kind in the new generation of superstars, or maybe why he will end up on a similar career arc as Porzingis, another unicorn in his own right. Maybe you think Scoot is the fusion of Westbrook's explosiveness and CP3 shot creation, or the next in line of disappointing guard prospects taken high in the draft. Whatever it is, let me know down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This video has been made by Underdog. Peace.